It was President Abraham Lincoln who, when dedicating the site of great battles in Gettysburg, that started his speech with,
"Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal."
Perhaps the most profound thing he said was talking about the great sacrifice that the soldiers made. And he stated,
"We take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom. And that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth."
freedom is not free, and we need to protect that balance with everything we have as a country. Our governments sometimes believe that they have dominion over us, but it is through the power of voting that we, the people, determine the freedoms we have, and we continue to maintain our freedoms through our votes. This was given to us in the Constitution, and when we allow individuals to compromise the integrity of our votes, we tend to lose freedoms. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, it is critical to our freedom. Please watch as we continue through this discussion of the importance of election integrity. Just like the American soldier will put his or her life on the line to protect our freedoms, the American voter also plays a critical role in protecting freedom. The voting process is an important one, and the integrity of the election process is also important. Voting can help protect freedom of speech. If we were to get a dictator who didn't want freedom of speech, we could be punished for speaking our mind. There's also freedom of religion. If we were to get the wrong people in office, they could curtail our religion. Freedom of the press. While I don't always agree with the press, I believe that it is a fundamental right for the press to be free, to investigate, and to provide transparency of what our government is doing. It can also protect freedom of assembly. Whenever there's a grievance, we can go to the government and assemble peacefully. And it also allows us to have the freedom to petition the government. Let's not forget about our Second Amendment rights. Voting can protect your right to keep and bear arms, your right to protect yourself. While there are many freedoms that we enjoy, including the right to a speedy trial and the right to not incriminate yourself, and many others, election integrity protects all of these freedoms and rights listed in the Constitution of the United States. We, the people, rule our country. not they, the government. Election integrity could change everything for us. Perhaps we got the wrong president in, or the wrong Congress. Do you think it couldn't happen in a large country like the USA? Well, let's look at a country where it actually happened. And in your mind, think if this could happen in the United States. Let's look at Venezuela. We've heard many times about Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez was actually a second lieutenant in the military, but he became disenfranchised with the way the government was being run and how it was against his socialist beliefs. Chavez twice tried to attempt a coup d'etat for the standing government. This landed him in prison. However, he was a good speaker, and in one of those instances, he asked to speak to the public, which grew his support. Chavez went from being an officer to being a prisoner. And the Venezuelan government had so much pressure that only after a few years he was released from prison. When he was released, he decided to run for president of Venezuela. And in 1998, he was elected president. In the first term of his presidency, Hugo Chavez created a new constitution. He increased the term limits of the president. He increased presidential power, and he changed the legislature from 2 houses to 1. He used all of this to gain more power and to lessen the will of the people. In December of 2002, Chavez seized all oil companies and he took over the assets for those. In 2004, people were becoming more and more disenfranchised with him. So, in one day, they gathered over 2.7 million signatures to recall Chavez. What was the party's response? Well, Chavez cronies released the names and a list of all those that signed to the general public. It was put online, it was put in newspapers, and put on television, and a whole lot more. This was a bullying tactic to make people vote the way they wanted and to show Chavez supporters who was opposing them. Starting in 2005, he expanded his relationship with Cuba. He and Fidel Castro became very close friends. He soon began visiting Russia, Iran, and China. This was the lead up to him later making deals with most of these countries, including buying anti-aircraft missiles and tanks from Russia, which he used to threaten the United States and told them that he would use them against them. He also made deals for supplying the government's seized oil to foreign governments. This endeared him to many of those wayward countries. To become more of a dictator, he created a one political party system, the United Socialist Party of Venezuela. Then he made a law where he outlawed free press and only government-owned media was allowed. Chavez was often accused of election fraud, and many say it was rampant. There was also voting intimidation, ballot harvesting, and so much more. From multiple sources, there was alleged lack of election integrity. Apparently, that led the Venezuelan people into suffering from a lack of food, high crime, and alleged lack of election integrity led to the Venezuelan people suffering. They suffered from lack of food, high crime rates, record high inflation, and a dictator from 1999 until his death in 2013. His predecessor still uses these tactics today, and the Venezuelan public is suffering, unless, of course, they're part of the political machine. So, looking at this, we can see why election integrity is so important in the United States and around the world. We, the people, need to demand election integrity. Right now, we see President Trump and Vice President Joe Biden each saying their own thing. We, the people, need to demand that anything untoward is investigated. We need to make sure that there is nothing that stands in the way of a fair election. Our lives depend on it. So, do you think it's still possible in this world, in this United States, that someone could steal an election and cause mass havoc? Please make sure to leave your comments. I look forward to your feedback. This has been a Doctor of Disaster short video. The Doctor of Disaster is a wholly owned subsidiary of Warnick and Associates Incorporated. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment.